So you're going to try and go contemplate gyroscopic power generation. So I like doing contemplation with physical things. So I'll contemplate in water, or I'll contemplate with, in being in contact with momentum, or I'll contemplate force generation. And as I generate force, right, as I try and transfer energy into the bag, I'll look at, what that energy looks like. Where is it coming from? Like what's actually hitting the bag? What am I hitting the bag with? And so, there's lots of different things you can hit the bag with. You can hit it with your hand, right? I can throw my hand at it, or I can use my hand in the structure to connect, to hit the bag with like my body weight, my water. So I can get it so it feels like my hips are running into it, my head's running into it. Things like that. And so when you're doing that, if you're trying to connect the punch and you go, oh, I'm trying to get my hips to run into the bag, you're trying to get that full body, and you do that, where you go, this is why it's cool to contemplate it. It's like, well, where am I? Who is throwing the hips, right? Who's controlling the body, and from where? And and you look and you go, like, where am I? Where is the control for this situation coming from? Where is it coming from? I've heard people go, who am I, right? Like I've tried to do contemplation, just like sitting there, and if you're just doing breath, or like just like, oh, I'm just supposed to figure out who am I, and you're like asking who am I, you don't get very far with that, I don't think. Maybe ultimately, because it's like, once you get going, maybe slow down a bit, but in terms of really taking that first step in the who am I question, I don't know how I would do it without moving. Like, I'd have to be on an exercise bike, or walking, or hitting, or doing some simple physical activity, and I try and do that activity with the entirety of my being, right? With punching, it's just like, well, what am I going to do? How am I going to punch with like all of me? What does that mean? Okay, I'm throwing all of me into it, so I have to get this coherent, and I have to get this, and then I have to connect it and throw it into the bag. And that's not a big deal. Like, that's pretty easy. You can sit and do it, but it's a big deal to notice what you're doing when you do that. And you're kind of, at that point, you're stepping outside of yourself, because you have to step outside of yourself to control your whole self. Or you have to step outside the system as a part of the system. Like, if I'm gonna use all my muscles, if you're just doing something with your arm, you can easily just kind of let the question rest of like, oh, what am I controlling my arm with? Here, my brain, my body, right? But the instant you get the body involved, or you get the brain involved, like, how do I get my head to like hit the bag? If you start throwing it with everything, then you've made that first step, and that's an interesting realm to explore. And that's you're looking at, you're inside the medium of mind. The medium of mind is the place from which you're controlling the physical system, or you're controlling any system that you're looking at. And when you're doing something, you can find, because you're trying to go, well, how is this moment connected to the mind? And so a simple activity is like, how is my mind throwing that punch? Like, no, really, how, where is it? Like, and at some point you'll find that the mind is behind the hand, is behind the body. And so just like, once you realize that the body is behind the hand, and then you can throw the punch with the body. If you realize that the mind is behind the body, then you can throw the punch with the mind. Right? and you'll go, okay, I want to throw that punch harder with the mind, and it starts to look like you have to get a big current going in the mind. You have to be like, and if you get a big current going in the mind, you'll find, oh, that's an emotion, that's a passion, that's a desire, right? So if I hit the bag with anger or like determination or some sort of emotional charge, that's, if I do that for real, then the mind is behind my hit, and I'll hit harder. Like if I'm pissed off, I'll hit harder. What is being pissed off? That's a current flow of mind going in a direction independent of you. Like an emotion is a movement in the mind independent of you. So again, if you start to realize like, oh, the emotions are moving the mind, and if you do an activity with that emotion, with that devotion, then again, boom, you step out again. What is it that's holding this current in the mind? So out of the body, you step out into the mind, and you go, what's holding the body? The mind. And then if you get into the mind and start playing with emotions, movements in there, it steps out again of like, what is it that it contains? Currents. If the body is in a medium and that medium has currents that you can control, then that means you're in a larger stepped out area of that medium, and that, you know, kind of gets you to the surface of the larger mind, which most people think of as thought. Most people experience the surface of the mind as thought, and you know, we kind of look up directionally, and then that surface, and then above that is even more rarefied mind. But within the mind that we exist, the mind within which we have emotions, and the mind within which the body is, the top or the surface of that mind is experienced of as thought. Like we kind of ignore it. It's such a background thing. The surface is everywhere. Like the surface of the mind is everywhere, especially if you think of the surface of the ocean. It's mostly there, but then, you know, around each fish, around each object in the ocean is another surface of mind, and again, that's thought. But when it's around an object, the thought's overlaid with the object, so that's kind of a perception. But when we have surface, where there's no object, it's just surface, that's kind of written off as thought. And then beyond that is a whole nother world, right? So we're like fish in this thing, and it's like, you know, you're like a fish, and most people, the boundary of the world is the thoughts. Nobody thinks of going beyond thought. Like a fish doesn't think of going beyond the surface of the water. And so anyway, with the gyroscopes are cool because it makes the thing start acting like basically energy. It's like it's cycling. It's got this. Its energy is when you have a habit that you're capable of interacting with. Like a thing wants to go around in a circle, and so you don't change the thing. You change how it's moving. So anytime you interact with water, you're changing how it's moving. You're not changing the water. You're just changing how it's moving. And it's the same thing with the gyroscope. It's like I'm not changing the gyroscope very much. I'm just changing how it's moving. And so anytime that you move through mind or move through awareness, you're generating a gyroscopic effect around the body just by how, like, you know, when you push something through water, the eddies, the water always vortexes. Any sort of drag through the mind, any sort of drag through water is generating gyroscopic effects, like gyroscopic vortexes. That's the drag. And so you have this going on at every single part of the body, right? So that's kind of like behind the movement pattern, again, like we were talking about before. So you can actually put gyroscopic effects into your strike. So if some of the energy that's going into this bag, I want the bag to feel like it's running into the gyroscopic effect of the rotating consciousness or the rotating water that happens in my wake as I move through my awareness. And it's not anything super crazy, but it's a little bit. It's like another muscle. It's like another weird thing to draw power from, and it's just like introducing, like if somebody's capable of moving around and hitting, that's different than somebody that has to just stand there, and that's going to be different than somebody who's like moving or sensing with the space that they're in by how they're like dragging through it. That's going to be another level. And then again, if somebody is capable of like influencing that emotional space, right, that's going to be kind of intimidating or baiting. So, you know, people are already in this, right? But yeah, really simple things like just force generation, like I'm running, force generation, over and over and over and over and over. Or cycling is really cool because you're on a wheel. I mean, you have constant power output. Constant power output from where? The legs, the whole body. Cool. Oh, the emotions, the motivation. Oh, boom, right? Way easier to make that jump with like a exercise bike or twirling a stick, or I guess you can do it with your breath. I don't know. Or like if I want to practice, I want to feel the ground or my weight go into the bag. This is probably the one I'm worst at. I mean, why wouldn't it be? Because it's the furthest away, right? I'm trying to connect this surface to this surface, and that's pretty far. Whereas with any of the spatial stuff where I'm trying to connect it to the water, it's like kind of everywhere. Or to my internal effort. Like also kind of like right there erupting from my heart. But to try and get it to connect from the ground up, that's like I have to empty. And I think it looks the same, right? Just like a wire with electricity looks the same as a wire with no electricity. Or a surfboard in the water looks the same as a surfboard out of the water. Or like a surfboard with fins looks exactly like a surfboard without fins if you're looking at it from a certain angle. So I think a lot of the Tai Chi or the Kung Fu stuff, I think, is probably like that, to where like on the surface, if you've never like tractioned into any of these energies, then the techniques or what they're training to do isn't going to make very much sense. And again, I wouldn't think about any of this stuff if you were fighting. Right? This isn't like I think it would make you better at fighting if you practice this stuff, but it's definitely not something that you would ever think about. right? Because if you think about it, it places it up in that realm far up that's, you know, divorced from everything here, so you don't want to think about it. You'd want to be with it right here. Dude, the ball of the foot kick, if that landed right, that's the worst thing ever. But I mean, honestly, anytime you get hit with like emotional energy or aggression, that's the worst thing ever. Is if they're like really into it and it's like the whole of reality is moving along with it that way. Like, that's who's gonna win. Whoever aligns with like whatever rage is happening in the moment, you would want to be on the side where it's like you're surfing it. You don't want to be on the side of this receiving it. So whoever's more into whatever's happening is gonna have like the nastier hit, and whoever's like not quite into what's happening is going to be receiving that. And there's really no way around that, no matter how much chi voodoo you know. And that's why, like, if you look at dudes that do martial arts or internal martial arts, if they don't come off as like somebody that could just be a total psycho, then they can't match whatever aggression. They might not generate it, right? They might not go around looking for it, but if you're gonna dominate that energy, you definitely have to surf it. So you definitely, like, to get on top of whatever reason like anybody might come to fight you, you have to be a bigger psycho than that to be able to surf it and be on the delivering end of it, even if you're like gonna be nice. You know, you can't be like, oh, I don't ride that way. Aggression. You'll just get like, ugh. But but yeah, so this is Kurt's Kung Fu Warehouse, where we train all day, every day. If you have a fitness or a Kung Fu need and you want some help achieving that goal, who is not AI driven, go ahead and, I guess, comment below or DM me over on x.com, where I waste most of my life. Any other golden nuggets? I'm like the goose. I'm like the golden goose with diarrhea. Golden donkey. Reverse golden donkey. Oh. Majestic king. So basically, Demon Slayer is real, and all that stuff that they're doing around when they like do their moves, that's their emotional body. Turning them into a force of nature. is it real or imaginary? That's the wrong question. Their imagination is fucking so strong, it's real, bro. And everybody's performing equally well in all this. It's not like, oh, here's a secret that nobody uses. It's like, this is just the environment that we exist in. And it's like, yeah, some people might be like fish that like can't comprehend going past thought or jumping out of thought. And some people might be like a flying fish or a whale that can like breach the surface of reality, but then you flop back down majestically. Who's to say which one is doing better in the grand scheme of things? And it's kind of all the same. And the whole point would be like, oh, the net from the higher dimensional reality, the fishermen, the humans that draw the unconscious fish up from the depths out of their mind into this realm where they ultimately die and are eaten by a higher ordered principle of reality. At which point they look back down on the material world of thought from a totally different vantage point. And what was seen to be the entire world is suddenly just the water of life.